Good morning, this is Sentinel's RV/GCR Daily Brief. Your daily read on the dinar, the dong, and the whole GCR. I'm Truman Vale, and I am genuinely glad you're here. It's Wednesday, July 15th, which means two things. One, we've got some real news to dig into this morning. And two, it's our weekly tracking desk day where we step back from the day-to-day noise and look at the whole picture, where the chatter actually stands right now, what threads are still alive, and what everyone's watching next. So let's get into it. Yesterday, we were all watching the arrival of Iraq's Prime Minister Ali Al-Zaidi in Washington for meetings with President Trump, and this morning those meetings are happening. That's not rumor, that's confirmed. The chatter yesterday was swirling around whether this trip is the final domino, whether the monetary side follows the political handshake, whether this is it. So let's advance that story and see where it actually stands today. First, the dinar. The biggest thing lighting up the community this morning is the Prime Minister's visit to DC. Al-Zaidi is sitting down with President Trump, and the word going around is that this meeting is unusually significant. Some voices are calling it the most important trip by an Iraqi PM in years. The thinking goes that this isn't just a courtesy call, it's about finalizing an economic and political partnership, and that partnership could be the final green light for the monetary reform everyone's been waiting on. Now here's what people are hoping for. The chatter is that once this meeting wraps, there's going to be clarity, real clarity, on whether the rate change is coming. One widely followed voice said whales in private positions believe that after this meeting, there won't be anything left to question. Another line making the rounds. Efforts are focusing on aligning the Central Bank of Iraq with U.S. financial institutions in the coming hours. That's the hope, that the handshake in Washington translates to movement on the ground in Baghdad and fast. And look, if you've got the free app, you didn't have to wait for me to tell you any of this. Anybody who flagged dinar or imminent timing in their notifications saw all of it hit their phone in real time the moment it landed. You're not waiting on the next show, you've already got it. That's the whole idea. Back to the claims. There's also talk that Iraq's central bank just issued an order allowing local banks to pay out dollars in cash again, contingent on matching deposits in overseas accounts monitored by Western regulators. If that's accurate, it's another step toward tighter oversight and forex-level credibility. The thread people are watching: tighter controls, more transparency, and the one-to-one parity everyone's hoping for. Some voices are saying that parity with the US dollar is the target, and that mechanisms to get there are coming into effect now. One person said it outright: the float to one-to-one will happen quickly, not over years. I'll be honest, I've heard quickly, not years, more times than I can count, so take it with a grain of salt. But the Al-Zaidi trip is real, the central bank alignment talk is real, and the hope attached to both is very, very real. Then there's the timing window everyone's buzzing about. The chatter this morning is that the notification and appointment window could open Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of this week, meaning today through Friday, with exchanges potentially starting this weekend. I've also heard Thursday night or Friday morning specifically. Another line going around: contractors are scheduled to pay out at a new rate beginning July 20th, and banks are bringing in extra staff at 7 a.m. on weekdays in preparation. Now, we've been hearing specific windows like this for a while, so hold it loosely, but that's what people are watching. This week, this window, this meeting, the hope is loud. One more dinar thread worth mentioning. There's talk that Iran's proxy status in Iraq had to end before the RV could happen, and that the takedown of Iranian influence is happening now. If true, that removes a major roadblock. The story being told is that Iraq is cleaning house politically, financially, operationally, and that all of it is converging right now. Whether it actually is, we'll see, but that's the narrative in the chatter. The dong is quiet this morning, nothing new breaking overnight. Same with the zim. If something lands later today, you'll see it in the app before I can tell you about it tomorrow. Now let's do what we do every Wednesday, pull back and look at the whole picture. This is the tracking desk. Here's where we are. For the last couple of weeks, the chatter has been centered on a few big threads, and most of them are still very much alive. The first is the Iraqi Prime Minister's trip to Washington, and that one just moved from coming soon to happening right now. Real meetings, real leaders, real stakes. The second thread is the Central Bank of Iraq tightening oversight, integrating dollar banks, choking smuggling loopholes, and preparing for forex credibility. That work is ongoing and documented. The third is the idea that once Iran's influence is dealt with, the path clears for the rate change, and the talk is that the takedown is underway. And the fourth is the hope that all of this, political, financial, operational, is converging in a very narrow window, possibly this week. Now the specific timing calls have been coming fast. We've been hearing imminent, within hours, this weekend, this week for a while now, so we hold all of it loosely. Things change, intel evolves, and nobody has a crystal ball. But the threads themselves, the Al-Zaidi trip, the central bank reforms, the alignment with U.S. institutions, the Iran peace, those are real and they're advancing. The question is whether they all land together and trigger the rate change, or whether we're still building toward it. This week feels like we're going to get an answer. Here's what people are watching right now. They're watching the Al-Zaidi meetings wrap and what gets announced afterward. They're watching for any word on central bank alignment or partnership deals coming out of Washington. They're watching the July 20th contractor date. They're watching for notifications Wednesday through Friday. And they're watching bond completions and group funding. There's chatter that Indian nation's funding is about 80% done and expected to finish in the next few days, which some think will trigger group movements and redemption announcements right behind it. So that's the landscape. A lot of threads, a lot of hope, a lot of very specific calls. We track it all, we organize it, and we take every piece of it with a grain of salt because that's how we stay smart and keep our heads on straight. This is the chatter, not the gospel, and we've been at this long enough to know that things slip, timelines evolve, and nobody truly knows until it's done. But we watch it all so we can be ready when it does happen, whenever that is. That's the tracking desk. Let's get back to today. The story of the day is pretty straightforward. It's the chain. The Al-Zaidi trip to Washington, the political and economic partnership everyone's hoping gets announced, the central bank alignment that's supposedly happening in the coming hours, and the belief that all of it unlocks the one-to-one rate and the notification window this week. That's the hope. That's what the community is watching. And by Friday night, we're probably going to know whether this window was real or whether it rolls forward again. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just telling you what's out there. So what do we actually watch for today? Watch for any news coming out of the Trump-Al-Zaidi meetings. Watch for statements from Baghdad or Washington about economic partnerships or central bank cooperation. Watch for any confirmation on the July 15th central bank order about dollar payouts. If that's real, it'll show up in the news. And if you're in the community long enough to be tracking bond groups and tier movements, watch for Indian nation's completion and any word on Admiral's group or Tier 4B notifications. But again, grain of salt on all of it. This is intel, rumor, and educated guesses off the news. We stay on top of it so we can make smart decisions, not so we lose our heads. Don't get too high, don't get too low, and definitely don't make any financial decisions based on a timeline somebody floated. We've heard this week 100 times. Maybe this one lands, maybe it doesn't. Either way, we'll be here tomorrow morning. All right, that's the brief. If you want all of this in one place, anytime you want it, 24/7, the free Sentinel app is the answer. You download it straight from GCRSentinel.com. It's not in the app stores yet, but it's coming soon. Once you've got it, you can turn on custom notifications and get pinged the second something you care about drops. You pick the gurus, the currencies, the kinds of claims you want, and you ignore the rest. Most of the app is free, and VIP membership, which gets you the power user level alerts and the deeper intel, is free right now too. That's a real edge, and it's worth grabbing while it is. And coming very soon, VIP members will be able to send in questions and I'll answer them right here on the show. So if there's something you've been wondering, something you want me to dig into, that's coming. Head to GCRSentinel.com and get the app today. I'm Truman Vale. Thanks for spending your morning with me. I'll see you tomorrow.